Time to talk some league. David Morrow, 2:26. David, looking forward to just a good old chinwagon catch-up with you as we approach the finals about who is coming, who's going, who's a sleeper and everything else. So welcome back to the show, mate.
No, it's always a pleasure, Martin, and especially when the Warriors are going so well.
Well, yes, big smiles on this side, of course. We only won 6 games last year, 13 wins already. But now it's serious because you can't get that amount of wins and fail to go on with it. So, I suppose it just creates a new challenge for the club, isn't it? You've got to go to the finals and you've got to start winning these games.
That's true, but, they've still got they've got a great draw, as probably everyone has pointed out. And, if the Broncos do fall over a couple of times between now and the end of the minor premiership and the Warriors win all 4, they could still sneak into second place, which means gives them a final match at home in the first week of the finals, and we all know if they win that, they get a preliminary final at home. So there's still optimism that could happen, which would be even easier to get to the grand final.
Just on that, before we get into everything else, Cam George is staying mum on this because it's a really delicate topic and an issue about where the NRL want to play these finals games, and given the fact that they take all the money from it, whether or not they say, hey, no, Mount Smart's too small and to go to Eden Park, which would stick it right up the core of all Warriors fans who want the game at home. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think they should be allowed to play at their home ground. I mean, other clubs are. Penrith can play out at their home ground. I mean, some clubs aren't allowed to. I mean, Cronulla not allowed to play there because it only holds 12,000. But I would have thought if Penrith were allowed to play at home, surely the Warriors were allowed to play at Mount Smart. I mean, that makes sense to me. I mean, there's a reason why Cronulla can't, but most of the other clubs are allowed to play on their home ground. I don't think they're allowed to play at Manly because the facilities are so rat something, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
No, look, you never know, though, with the NRL. It's a bit like some of the things that they do, but they probably want to play at Eden Park because it's this fancy ground and all of that, and a lot of money's been spent on it. But will it increase the crowd? I don't know. If there's a chance they can get 40,000, well, that's probably what their thinking is. But if it's just going to be a capacity crowd that fits from Mount Smart Stadium into Eden Park, I think that's a low blow to the Warriors.
What is more chance of happening? The Eels do make the 8 or the RLPA and the NRL sort this dispute out?
Oh, mate.
Yeah.
The Eels making the 8. I mean, they've been lucky. I mean, 2 of their last 4 games, the refereeing umpire, as I like to call him these days, Graham Manners, he's come out the next day and said the Eels were lucky and that both the Titans and the Dragons were robbed. So if you look at it that way, the Eels basically should be on 22 points and struggling to make the 8 full stop, which they still are. I'm not sure they're good enough to make the 8. I really are. I mean, I saw them play the other day, and the Dragons were the better team. The Titans were the better team. Anyway, if they do make the 8, you know what they'll do? They'll go to Brisbane and beat the Broncos this weekend. And, in the early days of the Broncos, the Eels had come off that great run they had in the early part of the 80s. The one team the Broncos had awful trouble beating was Parramatta, both in Sydney and in Brisbane. And it's often over the years, Parramatta go up there and beat them. So, that could happen this week. And if that happens, all of a sudden Parramatta are back in the bright lights of making the 8. And the Broncos are then saying, ooh, we're only 1 win in front of the Warriors, and points for and against may determine second place. So, mate, don't talk about the Eels. I think there's about 5 different teams for the Eels, and they rely on 2 players. That's Gutherson and the halfback Moses. And if they're not on song, I can't see them I can't see them going anywhere. If they make the 8, they'll be cannon fodder in the first week or the second week. I can't see them going any further than that.
And that means also that there's no end in sight to this players' union dispute with the admin.
Oh,
mate.
Look, I heard Peter V'landys yesterday. It's he said, you said, he said, you said. It's like a divorce court. I mean, for heaven's sake, it's not. I don't think it's that hard to resolve. That's what Peter's saying. I mean, surely they're grown people, grown men basically, and there's grown women involved in this as well. I mean, it's like a little kindergarten fight that you might have had behind the weather sheds when you were 5. And that's what we all look at it and say the only people they're hurting are the fans.
Yeah.
And the fans don't like being hurt by stubborn officials who, in many ways, some of them in this case, haven't got a clue what they're talking about.
David Morrow is with us from the Continuous Call team. Are the best two teams at the top? Are the Panthers and Broncos, in your mind, the two best teams this year?
Oh, they are. Facts and figures says that. And the thing is that the Panthers are there because, yet again, they're averaging around 12 points a game in defence. They concede 12 points a game, as they did last year, the year before and the year before, which makes them a very hard proposition to beat. Yeah, they'll have their off day, and their off day might come grand final day, but the fact that they're going to play the first week in all likelihood out at Panthers, and they'll probably play their second game, the preliminary finals, they win that. They'll play that probably, I would think, at a core stadium. So, they haven't got far to go for their fans, and they're used to playing at both grounds. So the chances are they'll be there grand final day. And if they get their grand final day, they've got another thing called experience in recent years of playing in them. So they're going to be hard to beat.
Are the Warriors the best matchup to beat them, given the fact that they play such similar styles, do you think? And also, I'm looking at most of the other teams and think there is a chink in the armour. I'm not saying there isn't with the Warriors, but I'm just trying to get a match against the Panthers and say who could possibly knock them off.
Well, the Warriors could, because they've got a bloke called Andrew Webster who probably knows the ins and outs of Ivan Cleary as well as anyone, if not better than anyone. So to start with, they've got that, and they've got this Sean Johnson factor. Sean's playing football probably as well, if not better than any time in his career, and we all know at his best, he is just, he's the best player in the game. He will probably, I would think, get the Dally M. I'll be very surprised if he doesn't. Every time they win, he's the best player on the field. If they win their last 4 games, he's already won the Continuous Call team Player of the Year. He's that far
Go on. That far ahead?
Yep. He's that far ahead now. I think he's 14 points clear of second with 4 rounds to go, so he can't get beaten in our Player of the Year competition. And, and last year, our competition mirrored the Dally M's to a large extent. So, I just find when you have a look at over the year, you think the only bloke that come near him is probably Payne Haas. But he's had a lot of points probably, they divide a lot of their points, especially when Reynolds and Walsh are playing. So I just look at it and think, is there anyone down sometimes you see the lower reaches, you see a team that every time they lose, one of their players gets a point, and then every time they win, that player gets the 3 points, which is a bit like Johnson, I suppose. But the fact that they won 13 games, I'd be surprised if he hasn't got 60 points this year, because there's 2 judges doing the Dally M's this year. But I'll be very surprised from what I've seen so far of Player of the Year competitions if Sean Johnson isn't the Dally M victor. Let's just hope this stupidity that's going on between the RLPA and the NRL, or ARL, call it what you like, doesn't have a repeat of 2003 when Gow would have won it and they couldn't hold it.
I'm going to go team by team here and see what you think. Although, pick me a sleeper, and because I've been looking at the Knights, I've watched their form, especially over the last 4 or 5 weeks or so, with Kalen Ponga playing like that. I'm not sure that they can go all the way, but they look like a really dangerous team at this time of year.
Well, they look dangerous because they've got some damn good forwards. All year we've been looking at the Knights team and saying, what the hell's going on? They've got the Saifidi brothers. They've got this Thompson who goes like the wind. They've got Frizzell. They've got Fitzgibbon, Elliott. It's a great forward pack they've got. And as you said, they've got Kalen Ponga. Hastings is playing good football. Still got a big question mark about Tyson Gamble, but he's a goer. He tries hard. They've got dominant. There's a lot of class in that Newcastle side. And if they can hit it up, I just don't think any team from the bottom half of the 8 can win, because basically they've got to play 4 good games against the best opposition 4 weeks in a row, and that's the problem. And it's a tough game, rugby league. You back up and back up and back up, but every week when you're backing up, basically the further or deeper you go into the finals, you're backing up against a team that on paper, according to the points table, is better than you. Yes. So you've really got to play some good footy. Yeah, occasionally Parramatta did in 2009, but that was because Jared Hayne was on fire. They got to the grand final. Few sides have done it. But it's very rare. It's very hard.
David, what is your assessment on the Melbourne Storm? Just because they are the Storm, I keep thinking, beware of this side. But are they actually, in fact, as good as they have been in the past?
I think it's fair to say they're not as good, but we've been saying that for 20 years.
Good point. Yeah, exactly right.
Just keep creeping on.
Yeah.
They've lost all these players. They can't do anything. Then all of a sudden, here they are in the grand final again. I think their worry is their forward pack. They got, we all know their backs at their best. Jerome Hughes is back this week, and he was sadly missed last week. Coates is back, Munster, and of course you've got Pappenhausen, who's played 40 minutes last week. He's probably going to play the whole game this week, and he might be back 2 weeks out from the finals. And if he can find his best form, that's a factor that no one's really put together with the Storm. But if he's back there, all of a sudden they're back in contention because they've got enough good forwards to they play a bit like Penrith. They don't give you anything. The last couple of weeks they've made mistakes, and I know Craig's just said he is absolutely livid with them, and those blokes will know that Craig will be looking for mistake-free football for them. And if they do that, they've got the backs to win the comp. Don't worry about that.
From the continuous call team, David Morrow is with us. So I've got to ask you right at the end of all of this who your favourite is. I keep asking you all the time, and I hope it changes because then we can edit all that together and play it back to you at some stage. The Raiders, again, 12 wins, 8 losses, but their points differential says that they are a team that concedes a hatful, minus 74. Does that count them out in your book?
Oh, I watched them play last week. I called that game between the Raiders and the West Tigers. Really, I mean, they were dreadful. I mean, I know they won, but how they won, I'll never know. They got to the lead and they played un-Raiders-like football. They then tried to sit on a lead, which against the West Tigers is fraught with danger, and it almost came unstuck. So I'm not sure whether they're good enough. I can't see the Raiders winning the comp. I really can't. There's a couple of teams down there. If they hit their straps, they could go deep into the series, into the finals. I don't think the Raiders is one of them because I don't think they can make the top 4 now because of what you said. That huge minus differential. I know there's games to play, and the Warriors are only 2 points in front of them. The Warriors, I've got no doubts the Warriors will finish on 40 points.
Wow!
So
wouldn't last
the Raiders aren't going to get to 40. They can't. So the Raiders. Yeah, they'll be there. They'll play if they play their home game. If they do happen to finish 5th, they'll play the first week at home. And as Cronulla proved back in 2016, that's no good. That's not necessary. That's not a given because Cronulla went down there, had a bloke sin bin in the first few minutes, and beat them on their home turf without Gallen. So I look at them and think that they keep promising, but they haven't delivered too much. Although Whiten might have a couple of blinders left in him because he's leaving at the end of the year to go to South.
And you mentioned Engel there as well. I was watching the other night and you're still talking up the Sharks, but surely they're just too inconsistent too. So, yeah, okay, there you go, right.
He had a shot at me last Friday night when he said South and Cronulla, who's going to win tomorrow? I said, well, Cronulla can start now and they still won't win. We all know what happened. And he didn't miss me all weekend, I can assure you of that. But they are... talk about side with two sides.
Yes.
There's certainly 2 Cronullas. They've got one that rolls up and thinks that the defence is the thing that runs around the perimeter of the field. And then there's the other one that rolls up and tackles like they did last week.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Also, as far as Souths and the Cowboys go, I mean, look, either of these teams, I mean, there's a real battle going on there for 7th and 8th, isn't there? These 2 teams, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if either of them actually do make it in there, and both could. But again, are we sleeping on these teams, or is there inconsistency saying everything that they don't really have what it takes to keep going all the way through the finals?
Well, if South find everything you go in their way, they can do anything because they've got enough class players in that back line to destroy us. So they can concede 30 points, but they can score 36. But I hear there's problems in the South Sydney lineup, and it's more so off the field than on the field. And unless Jason Demetriou can fix that up very quickly, like tomorrow, and they're playing in Cairns this weekend. They've just been a good hunting ground for them over the years. And, gee, I look at them and think some of the times I've seen them this year, think, they're going to win the Premiership. Other times you see them and think they'll get the wooden spoon. They're a bit like Cronulla. They're very inconsistent, but they're dangerous. They're dangerous because they've got a 5'8" who can play. They've got 2 centres who can play. They've got Alex Johnson. Oh, that's right. They've got a bloke called Latrell Mitchell. And I just wish Latrell had concentrated on his football. He might be, but gee, he spends a lot of time publicising everything else, and he's not playing as well as we know he can. And maybe that calf injury is taking a bit longer to get over, as we know they can. But there's something about the Rabbitohs. But they're one team that could probably win 4 in a row against the best if they get everything going and their confidence is high. If there is a smoky, it's probably still the Rabbitohs. But gee, I'm not sure they're playing well enough to put 4 games together. Maybe they can, but it's the off-field rumours that I'm hearing that concerns me. that they're not a happy group of players.
All right, 2 quick questions. We'll let you go. And again, thank you so much for your time, David. Who's going to look back and say what an abject failure the season was? Did the Roosters win that prize already?
Roosters by a long way.
Right. Okay.
It has been a horrible year for them. The beginning of the year, they were favourites to win the comp. They won a couple of weeks ago, last week, wasn't it? Everyone said, gee, they're back. I said, what, they're back? I said, they're still halfway. They're only just in front of the Titans, the Dolphins.
That's right.
That's right. The Dogs, the Dragons and the Tigers.
Yes.
I said, they've got a horrible for and against, which I've always thought for and against is a great barometer as to how well you're playing. They're minus 100, I think, from memory. That suggests that you haven't played much good football all season, so no.
You're exactly right. Minus 100. All right, finally, you got Levy, you got Big Man, you got Gal, you got Piggy, you got Josh, you got Boyd. 2 of them that you are going out for dinner with, and you're going to just blank the others. Who are the 2 you pick?
Oh, that's a hard question. That's a hard
Because a few of them are going to get a sour on, aren't they?
I tell you what, I want to go out with Piggy and Mark Levy, and the reason I would pick those 2 in front of Darryl is Darryl is so finicky about what food he eats. You don't believe it. He won't eat seafood and he won't eat this. And then he has a look at the wine list and says, I know what you're going to choose. We're not going to choose that wine. I thought, mate,
Right. We've all got a mate like that. Mate. You take him out for dinner, he's a nightmare. Great fun, yeah. Mm-hmm.
They're all great fun. I mean, a whole lot of them. All of us went out together after the grand final last year, the following day. And that was one of the funniest days we've ever had. Admittedly, the butt of it all was me, of course.
Yeah, of course.
Gallon was dragging me around the floor and doing things like that.
Isn't it such fun, though, to have a whole group of mates and you get to talk about league, mate, on the weekend? It's brilliant, isn't it?
We do. And, we have a lot of fun. And despite some people saying, did you really get on with them? I said, yeah. I said, we have text messages. And when Darryl's one of these blokes that he just can't help himself. He's like a little 5-year-old. You get up in the morning and you see 168 text messages. And nearly all of them from Broman.
Keep poking the bear, mate. Keep poking.
They're all a lot of fun. Thanks, Martin.
Devlin.
Unbelievable. Incredible.
The Platform.